of all, I would like to emphasize that it's a great pleasure for me to be with you here, colleagues. Biodiversity, as we know it today, is fundamental to human life on Earth. But we also know that our planet is in trouble. It is being destroyed by us at a rate unprecedented in history. During this session, we will discuss with our experts what should be done in order to change the situation. Before we start our discussion, I would like to share a short presentation with you and tell you more about our experience we have at the Anthropocene Epoch Project. Anthropocene Epoch is a community of researchers, educators and communication professionals working together to advance the understanding of the ongoing environmental, social and technological changes and their ethical implementations. Nature conservation and biodiversity loss is one of the key issues we've been working on. Why it matters? The loss of biodiversity is not only an environmental issue, but a development, economic, ethical one. Biodiversity plays a critical role in our life, providing us with fresh water, food, energy and medicine, and it's a key to the regulation of our climate, as we know. Can we reverse these trends to decline? What ways can be found to solve these problems? Professional conservation organizations and protected areas in particular are the cornerstone of safeguarding biodiversity, but they need help. And yes, they need money to buy equipment for rangers, fuel, seedlings for reforestation, and multiple other needs. And here, where charity foundations may help. Anthropocene Epoch partnered with Beautiful Children in Beautiful World Foundation to help it upgrade and relaunch one of the key funding mechanisms, the competition, or better to say, call for proposals for the best project implemented by a protected area. The foundation helps nature reserves and national parks to implement projects that aim to preserve natural and cultural heritage of Russia. So, what we did, instead of using one-fits-all solution, we advised to channel different types of projects into separate streams. One purely conservational and research project. One for communications, public outreach and education. One for effective partnership between different protected areas. And last but not the least, one for emergency and crisis response. The last probably needs some clarification. For the very first time in Russia, there is now an emergency fund where protected areas could apply if something really bad and unexpected happens. It could be a flood, a wildfire, a harsh winter, or just a broken tractor. Anything can happen, and it's important that protected areas could apply for help throughout the year, not just when the call for proposal is open. So, we have been astonished by results. 78 bids have been received and 13 best projects have been approved for funding. And we are keen to see what they will achieve. But, as we know, biodiversity is not only about fluffy tigers, flying fish or flesh-eating plants. Biodiversity is also about ecosystem services, something humans need to thrive and survive. Let's take pollination. Without it, numerous edible plants would not be able to bear fruit and provide us with staple foods from apples to tomatoes. And yet, this service is at risk. Pesticides designed to get rid of pests are also harming honeybees, the key pollinators across much of Eurasia. Don't farmers understand what's going on? Of course they do, but the problem is that often they can't inform beekeepers and the pesticide spraying is planned. Fortunately, there is a solution, complex in terms of cutting-edge technology behind it, but easy to use. Let's watch a video.
Plants and pollinators. Thanks to this perfect connection, we have about 2/3 of crop plants that feed the world. In 2019, Russia came dangerously close to discovering what future without this connection would be like.
На грани настоящей экологической катастрофы сейчас оказались сразу несколько российских регионов. И там, как и во многих регионах России, массово гибнут пчелы. Ущерб для нашей экономики, по данным экспертов, уже перевалил за триллион рублей.
Массово умирают пчелы, а вслед за ними пугают ученые. Наша очередь.
The main reason is pesticides. Farmers use them to protect their harvest and accidentally harm bees too. Going back to its hive, the contaminated bee spreads the toxic chemicals around the whole apiary. Creating a connection between farmers and beekeepers would help to protect the bees. However, there has never been a way to provide it, until recently. Beeline, one of the major telecom companies in Russia, is proud to present Bee in Touch, a free communication service. Now all a farmer planning to treat crops has to do is to just push one button. A special algorithm provided with massive data about fields and apiaries geolocation will evaluate the number of apiaries in danger and send a notification to their owners. In this way, they will have enough time to protect their bees by covering the hives or moving them away for a period calculated on real-time data. The launch of our service brought together the government, farmers, beekeepers and international experts.
Nothing can replace pollinators. It's impossible. What we need to do is to protect them.
And instantly became one of the most discussed events. Many agricultural regions joined us already in the first 2 weeks. So the long-awaited first version of the federal beekeeping law was finally proposed to the parliament. And since the extinction of bees is a challenge not only for our country, we will create a free guide which includes our service source code to help other countries protect their bees in the future. Because after all, the easiest way to make the future better is to be in touch.
Great, isn't it? Finally, an Anthropocene epoch, we believe that education is a key to saving the planet, and also to living one's own life in the interesting and fulfilling way. That's why we have developed a wide range of courses, lectures and masterclasses for children, teenagers and adults on a wide range of subjects we think are important, from museum ethics to sustainable lifestyle, from artificial intelligence to waste management. And we aimed to make sustainability education strictly science-based, but also accessible and practical. To achieve this, we tried different formats, short lectures and lengthy courses with homework offline and online, class-based and gamification-driven. But partnering with museums, schools, libraries and businesses gives us an opportunity to reach different audiences and needs. And we do believe that 3 cases we just shared with you illustrate our mission statement. We aspire to develop ethical principles for the Anthropocene where all forms of life and intelligence will be able to strive in harmony with each other and the planet. Thank you for your attention. And now, let me welcome our first speaker, Brenda Mwale, who is the founder of Glow Foods, ambassador of Future Africa Leaders Foundation and Scotland-Malawi Partnership. Brenda is a climate activist from Malawi and a winner of Future Africa Leaders Awards, the 2018 Top 100 Independent Young Leaders Award and the 2019 Obama Leaders Award. Ms. Mwale, we would like to ask the following questions. You are also an active member of the Green Girls Platform and Malawi National Youth Network on Climate Change. In commemoration of the International Day of Biodiversity, you have successfully launched National Youth Biodiversity Network. What needs, from your opinion, to be done to involve youth in climate change policy decision-making process? What can be done from the grassroots level to stop environmental degradation and preserve our ecosystems?
Okay, so my name is Brenda Mwale from Malawi. And Malawi is a country in the southern part of Africa. And I'm a youth leader, a climate change youth leader, and I'm also programs manager for Green Girls Platform. So Green Girls Platform was founded in 2016 and officially registered in 2018 with the main focus of giving women and girls a platform so that they can have like a safe space and also be active towards climate action. This was done after knowing that women and girls were not given like space whereby they can get actively engaged towards climate action. So we thought it wise to have like an organization to serve as a platform which is like women-led. So this organization is women-led, and it targets women and girls. So for this, we have like a number of projects that we are involved in. So we provide capacity building workshops, we work with women and girls based in rural communities of Malawi, and we also work with girls from primary schools, secondary schools, and even in colleges. The aim of this is to train them or to build them, to provide them like with capacity or skill development so that they can be positive change makers in their communities. This we do without regarding someone's age or the education background or the financial background, because our main focus is to make sure that no one is left behind towards the fight towards climate action. At the very same time, I'm also programs manager for National Youth Network on Climate Change. This serves as an umbrella body in Malawi, like more or less like networking all the individuals or youth clubs and youth organizations that are working towards climate action. This is so that we can create that environment where youth are capacitated, they are built, and they are supported in their endeavors towards climate action. And also to make sure that in the end we have like one voice to make sure that we are all working towards one common goal, which is climate action. So we are also working with youth organizations and youth from different levels, from different backgrounds in Malawi. These are those that are like, they're not in school, those that are in school, and those that are even in colleges. This is to ensure inclusivity and diversity of everybody, like everyone has to be represented, because climate change can only, climate action can only be achieved if everyone is underrepresented, irrespective of who you are, where you're coming from, or where basically where you're found. So everybody has to take a stand towards climate action. And this year I was privileged, in May, when we're commemorating International Day of Biodiversity, where we also officially launched the National Youth Biodiversity Network, and the National Coordinator for National Youth Biodiversity Network in Malawi. And for this, we are also working towards to ensure that we are moving towards climate biodiversity preservation, to make sure that youth are incorporated, to make sure that youth have a voice, to be that voice for the voiceless, to be that helping hand to those that need support in one way or the other, to provide capacity in one way or the other. Malawi is one of the countries that's heavily hit, or it's hit the impacts of climate change are very diverse, and there's so much that has to be done in the country of Malawi to make sure, being those countries that are a developing country, being a country that's suffering so much by the diverse effects of climate change. So this we do, having knowing that youth are the biggest population in Malawi, and to also to make sure that we have sustainability in achieving, to make sure that we achieve climate action, is to make sure that children and youth are in the forefront of climate action. So right now we provide different capacity building workshops. We provide different intergenerational dialogues, just so that we make sure that everyone is on board, that those who have never they have never even done environmental management in school, but they have passion to make sure that they are also in the forefront towards climate action. So as Green Girls Platform and as National Youth Network on Climate Change, we provide that platform for everybody, for diverse backgrounds, to be able to thrive and take a stand towards climate action. Despite the different innovations that the youth are doing out there, but then there are so many challenges that young people are facing to make sure that the innovations are scaled up, or to make sure that their voices are scaled up. All I can say is that as youth, let's not give up. Let's keep pushing for, let's keep keeping our policymakers accountable. Let's make sure that their doors are open. Let's keep pushing to make sure that we work together. As youth, we want to work together with our leaders. We don't want our leaders to see us as threats. We want them to see us as partners, to make sure they also have to know that we are fighting the same battle, because climate change is affecting us all. So to policymakers, we'll have to help them realize that what the commitments that they are making right now, for example, here at COP26, there are so many commitments that our world leaders are making, but then how do we make sure that those commitments are sustainable? How do we make sure that we have generational success? Is by making sure that everybody is coming on board. Is by making sure that even the children, like we have to increase climate education, like promote climate education. We have to make sure that everybody knows. Right now, countries are submitting their national determined contributions. Who is going to keep those leaders accountable? It's you and I. We as young leaders are the ones to be in the forefront to make sure that our leaders are accountable. Our leaders have action plans on how they are going to fulfill their national determined contributions. It's us that are going to make sure that our leaders have fulfilled their contributions that they have made. It's us to make sure that our leaders are committing themselves to the like how they're going to preserve biodiversity. At the very same time, we should not only just be blaming our leaders to say they are not doing enough. We also have to be in the forefront in trying to preserve biodiversity, because we are the ones who are going to be affected the most. Because right now, the impacts that we're facing right now are not because of the consequences that were done yesterday. These are as a result of the consequences that were done 1,000 years ago, which means even the actions that we're doing right now, we are yet to face the consequences that will still, like, we are the ones who will be mostly affected. How are we going to achieve, for example, the 2063 agenda that, like, for example, the government of Malawi has put in place? It's us, the youth, to keep that, I can say, that vision alive. We are the ones to sustain that vision. We are the ones to own that vision and make sure that we keep going with it by making sure that everyone is on board. So right now, I would like to just urge everybody, start from where you can. You don't have to have a national project. Start from where you are. If it means just reaching out to like 2 or 3 people, it's okay. Start from where you are. So all I can say is, youth, be on board. Let's keep our voices heard. Be that voice for the voiceless, and make sure that our voices are heard. Let's have international partnerships to make sure that we have like sustainable collaboration, sharing our experiences, trying to boost each other's objectives so that we achieve the common goal. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience, and I appreciate you being there today. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds like a fascinating project that could really change our perception of the environment. And now let's move on to Ryan Collier, the CEO of Rhisotope Central and South Africa. Today, we've heard a lot about programs that involve young climate leaders in taking actions to preserve biodiversity. Mr. Collyer will tell us about the role global corporations might play in saving endangered species using the Rhisotope Project and the involvement of Rhisotope in it as an example of such commitment. Let's hear more about the current status and the objectives of these initiatives, as well as about further steps that Rhisotope plans to take to promote sustainable development agenda.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. Today I'm going to be discussing the innovative Rhisotope Project, which is supported by Rhisotope. The main premise behind the Rhisotope Project is using nuclear science to curb rhino poaching. This is done through a multifaceted approach. Essentially, the aim is to insert radioactive isotopes into the horn of the rhino and therefore devalue the horn, as well as creating a far more difficult logistics path for the horn. This because of the many portal monitors at exit and entry ports from where the horn is poached all the way through to the end user. The other aspect of the project is education and community outreach. We aim to educate people globally on the plight of the African rhino, as well as on the project, in the hopes of diminishing the value of the horn with the end user. As for the community outreach, we've realized that it is absolutely essential for the local community to be behind the project, And therefore, we have already started with a number of community outreach programs in the local community in the Eastern Cape. Most recently, we launched an aquaponics unit with the Amakala Foundation, and the premise behind that is a sustainable feeding program with a very sustainable and environmentally friendly system, which also creates a platform for us to reach out to the local community and educate them on rhino conservation. The current status of the project is that phase 1 is complete, and essentially phase 1 involved inserting stable isotopes into the horns of 2 rhino. Essentially, these were completely harmless isotopes, and the reason behind this was to understand whether the isotope would travel from the horn of the rhino into the body of the rhino. Thankfully, phase 1 was an overwhelming success. It proved that the isotope does not travel from the horn into the animal, and that sort of gives us the comfort to move forward onto phase 2 of the project. It means that any subsequent radioactive isotopes that we insert into the horn of the animal will not move from the horn into the body of the animal, which means it theoretically should be completely safe for the animal. We are now moving into phase 2 of the project, and that essentially involves computer and phantom modeling of a rhino, as well as the development of the radioactive material which will be inserted into the horn of the animal. We will also be looking at various different methods of inserting the radioactive material into the horn. Essentially, we want to make it a very quick and the least distressing for the animal. So the method in which the radioactive material is inserted into the horn is vitally important. We want to essentially just be able to sedate the animal, very quickly put the material into the horn, and then release them back into the wild. The premise of this project is at all times to have the rhino's best interest at heart. Once phase 2 of the project is complete, we have the conclusive results from that, we will be going to the ethics committees. Once we have all of the animal ethics committees' approvals or endorsements, we will then be moving on to a pilot phase. The pilot phase of the project will involve inserting radioactive material into the horns of roughly 20 to 25 animals, who will then be monitored over an extensive period of time. As for Rhisotope's involvement into the project, we've been involved from the very beginning. We seed funded the project, and we've also been very active in terms of the educational aspects, both globally and locally. We most recently sponsored the aquaponics unit that went into the Eastern Cape with the Amakala Foundation. Beyond that, we're also actively involved in the computer modeling as well as the metallurgy side, and looking into the various materials that we'll be able to irradiate and insert into the horn of the rhino. As for my own personal involvement in the project, obviously as a South African, this is incredibly near and dear to me. African rhinos and rhinos in general are iconic in South Africa. And I remember as a young child going to the local dam to do some fishing, and there were white rhino that roamed around in the reserve. Unfortunately, those rhino are no longer there for various reasons, but really I would just like to play my role in conserving, this amazing species, and hopefully one day my daughter and her children will be able to see them too. So I urge all of you, please, look up our project, get involved, and let's conserve the rhino and the planet together. We have a video after this, so please watch. It's about the Rhisotope Project. And again, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to discuss this project with you today, and have a fantastic rest of the conference.
We are looking to find a way to devalue rhino horn. The answer is no, we can't, make it poisonous. We can make it detectable by putting sufficient radioactive material into the horn of a rhino. If it's poached, that horn, it becomes that much more traceable, more detectable as it's moved down the poaching line. That's that's where we are at the moment. So we are now setting out down this path of discovery, because obviously before I do anything in terms of putting radioactive materials into an animal, I need to know what's going to happen. If you destroy the desire to own something, then the supply is not going to be, people aren't going to want to supply it, because nowadays, there's no market for it, there's no value to it. We introduce a number of additional points in the supply chain from poacher to end user, and the risk of handling it has increased. If you are caught in possession of radioactive material in South Africa, you have automatically committed a crime against the state. As a crime against the state, not only the green scorpions involved, but the hawks are now involved. And then, so the punishments for handling that sort of material, being in possession of that material, increase. The whole idea going forward is that we do the fundamental research to demonstrate that there isn't movement from the horn of a rhino back into the body, so that we can then look into the eye of owners and say, we're not going to be poisoning or harming your animals by putting something into the horn. But then equally we need to be able to say, because we're all, people are all worried about radioactive doses and radiation doses, and so we need to be able to say, look, using well-recognised nuclear science techniques, we can then calculate the dose, the radiation dose that an animal will receive when we put a certain quantity of radioactive material into the horn of that animal. Where are we going? Well, get our proof of concept right. Sky's the limit, to be honest. Next 2.5, 3 years, we want to be able to treat 3,000 rhino.
One more time, I want to thank all the participants of this session. I'm sure our society will benefit greatly by putting your thoughts into actions. Underlining the importance of the topic of sustainable development for each and every person on planet Earth, I would like to quote the famous naturalist and filmmaker Sir David Attenborough. We, he said, have to recognize that every breath of air we take, every mouthful of food we take, comes from the natural world. And if we damage the natural world, we damage ourselves. We are one coherent ecosystem. It's not just a question of beauty or interest or wonder. The essential ingredient of human life is a healthy planet. We are in danger of wrecking that. I hope we'll do our best to save our planet for saving ourselves.